I'm Douglas Cole, the Erie County Historian, and it is my privilege to welcome all of you to the formal closing of the Erie County Bicentennial. We're just reflecting, we can't believe it's been a whole year already. As we did at the opening, we feel it's fitting and proper to begin by honoring the original indigenous inhabitants of our region. Land acknowledgement is a traditional custom that dates back centuries in many indigenous nations and communities. We would like to acknowledge that we were on the land of indigenous peoples. Traditionally, these lands were home to many nations, including the Neutral, the Erie, the Wenro, the Huron, and other peoples. This territory is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Treaty of Peace and Friendship, a pledge to share peaceably and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. It's also covered by the 1794 Treaty of Canandaigua between the United States government and the Six Nations Confederacy, which further affirmed Haudenosaunee rights to these lands and sovereignty in New York State. Today, Erie County shares borders with two sovereign territories. The Cattaraugus Reservation of the Seneca Nation of Indians lies along the county's southern border, and the Tonawanda Reservation of the Tonawanda Seneca Nation on the county's northeastern border. Today, these lands are still regarded as traditional homelands of the Seneca and other Haudenosaunee peoples. We honor their vibrancy, and we aspire to a world of reconciliation guided by the example of the Haudenosaunee themselves. It is my part of the closing to talk about what we tried to do in terms of commemorating 200 years of history. And I think it's important to note that despite the challenges of commemorating a bicentennial in the middle of a pandemic, the efforts provided great results. We've had the opportunity to share untold stories and unheard voices that make Erie County's history so rich and so diverse. We produced 40 digital billboards and 12 radio spots. We did in-person events at the Roycroft where we celebrated trailblazing women, the contributions of the LGBTQ community, and our ethnic heritage. In creating Continuum, the exhibit that we're standing in, we've worked hard to make sure that a wide array of stories and constituencies have been represented in the commemoration of our bicentennial. Commemorating our diversity and amplifying those stories is one of the significant legacies of EC 200. And it would not have been possible without the help and support of our partner organizations. And we would like to take a minute and recognize some of the partner organizations that are here. Barbara Nevergold of Uncrowned Queens, Bill Butler of the Black Rock Historical Society, Kaz Rodriguez, the Hispanic Heritage Council, Erie County and all of the departments, Parks, Public Works, all of the departments that have participated and helped us be so successful in the bicentennial effort. Lindsay Visser of the Italian Cultural Center, Mary Roberts of the Frank Lloyd Wright Darwin Martin House, Kelly Johnson of the Albright Knox, Karen Sutton, Lancaster Historical, Ann Conable, the Buffalo Library System. Buffalo Niagara Heritage Village has been a participant with us. Friends of the Concordia Cemetery, one of the great, I think, success stories of how we were able to amplify those voices that we talked about. The Griffin Mills Church in East Aurora, Independent Living of Western New York, Gary Costello and the Hull House and Family Farm that's in Lancaster. We also have with us a lot of local organizations, Newstead Historical, Lancaster Historical, as well as the Buffalo Philharmonic has been a great partner. The Erie County Commission on the Status of Women, the public library system. It would not have been possible to do all of the things we did without their participation and the participation of so many other groups across the county over the last years of planning, not just the last year of commemoration. And before I turn the podium over to Mark, I would like to just make one more acknowledgement. One of the cornerstones of what we did was the passport, the Heritage Passport, which encouraged people to travel throughout the county to see the different sites throughout all of the towns from Grand Island to Sardinia and everywhere in between. And there was a group of local organizations that really spearheaded that. The committee it's just one thing we could not have done on our own. So we would like to recognize the groups that really took charge of the Bicentennial Passport. That was Doug and Sandy Larkin and Mark Woodward from Clarence, Karen Sutton from Lancaster, Christopher Gust, Karen Moko from Alden, Pat Pierce, Don Holmes from Newstead, and Marlene Baumgartner from Elma. Their work will be one of the legacies and continue to encourage people to experience the heritage and history of Erie County as we go beyond the 200 years that we've celebrated. And now it's my honor and privilege to introduce Mark Poloncarz, Erie County Executive, to talk about the Bicentennial.
Thank you, Doug. Thank you for all the work that you've done for the last few years on this project. But as Doug noted, it took many people to be involved. They say it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it took an entire county to hold this bicentennial celebration. So if you were named and your organization was part, come on up. This is your celebration too. Come on up. Don't sit back there in the back. I want each of you to be recognized so that people understand it wasn't just 4 or 5 of us sitting here. There were dozens upon dozens of individuals who played a role in this celebration of Erie County's bicentennial for this past little more than a year. So come on, get in here. And this is emblematic of our community. This is an example of who we are in Buffalo and Erie County. Is we come together to not only celebrate the past, but to build a better future for all. And that's exactly what we tried to do during this bicentennial celebration. We understand that it was different than what we had originally planned. When the first meetings were held back in 2018 and 19, we had a whole different idea of what the bicentennial celebration was going to be, and then of course we were thrown the biggest curveball that any of us has ever seen during our lifetimes with the COVID-19 pandemic, which unfortunately we're still dealing with COVID-19 in our community. But the people that you see around me said, we're not going to stop. We want to have a celebration, as good a celebration as we possibly can, even under circumstances that were completely foreign to us just a few months before. So on behalf of the people of Erie County, I want to thank each and every one of the members of the committee and those who played a role in making the bicentennial celebration as good as it was. And what I was interested in, and you never want to do comparisons between communities, but there were other counties in New York State that were celebrating their bicentennial as well. And they didn't do anything like we did. So on behalf of the people of Erie County, thank you for all the time and effort you put in. I went to a number of the events that were held for the public, and they were wonderful events. There were also, of course, many that were held online so that we could ensure that we still talked about the history of our community, our past and where we're going, but do it in a safe manner while we were dealing with some very significant health concerns. So on behalf of the people of Erie County, to each and every one of you, I really thank you for your tremendous work. It was a celebration that we didn't necessarily think it was going to be, but in some ways it's one we'll never forget, because we had to work a little harder to ensure that we provided the best type of celebration of Erie County's history that we could during these trying times. And the nice thing that's coming out of this, and you'll hear a little bit more from Melissa on this, is the work that you see from this committee here and the individuals who played a role is not ending. The bicentennial may be over with. We may now be in our 201st year of Erie County's history. But that doesn't mean that the work that was put in with regards to this effort ends today. It actually, in some ways, is changing as we basically look forward to keeping together the individuals and the organizations who played a role, because I think we all realize by working together, we became better and stronger. We found out more about our community than we would have individually. We learned more about the organizations and what makes Erie County as strong as it is. By coming together and saying, we will only succeed if we do it together. And as a result, we're moving forward, and you'll hear a little bit more about, we're going to continue, if not the bicentennial celebration, but the work that was put together during this time to ensure that we actually can continue to spread the message about our community. I mean, this exhibit that we're in right now, Continuum, is an incredible example of what can be done in a fairly short period of time to ensure that we tell our story. We don't often do that. I think what we often learn is we hear about the general, what our community is, but we don't often tell the individualized stories associated with our community and learn from that. Because everything and everyone that we are is a result of the people who came before us. And when we think we've dealt with things like no one else has ever dealt with, well, you know what? 1912, they were dealing with the pandemic, or 1917, they were 18, they were dealing with the pandemic, but it was influenza. And you read some of the things that they dealt with back then, and it's some of the same exact things that we were dealing with here, except there wasn't someone going on television every day to tell them what was going on in the community. So I think it's very instructive when you're able to have an opportunity to learn from what was the past and try to create a better future for all. And that's what we've done this last year, especially as it pertains to the Bicentennial, is to learn from our past. And it's not always as great. Sometimes you like to talk about the wonderful things that happened in the past, but you also have to look at what happened in the past that wasn't so good to learn from and become a better and stronger community as a result of it. Because you learn more from your mistakes than you do in your successes. And unfortunately, each and every one of us as a community, as a person, has done with mistakes in the past, and as a community, we know some of the mistakes in the past that we've learned of to become a better community in the future. So once again, thank you to all who've made this a wonderful celebration. Actually, there's a proclamation here that I signed with today. Actually, it's effectively as of the 19th, when we declared EC 200 Day in Erie County. But really what it is, it's about celebrating our past and all the work that was done to ensure that Erie County as a community did not forget about where we came from, so that we can learn from that and hopefully become a better community in the future. And as the county executive, it was my pleasure to oversee the celebration, even if it was a little different than we originally planned. And once again, to each and every one of you, thank you for your good work during trying circumstances and making the celebration as good as it was. You should all be proud of what we've accomplished in trying times. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our host here today, the Executive Director of the Buffalo History Museum, Melissa Brown, and I just want to thank her for the tremendous work of her and her staff to ensure that our bicentennial celebration was as good as it was, because if it wasn't for the History Museum and the resources that they have here, I guarantee you it would not have been as wonderful a bicentennial celebration as it was. So, Melissa?
Thank you. It strikes me in this room, and especially when you were dialing back on the history county executive, that this would be an epic game of Trivial Pursuit we could play here in this crowd, because there are a lot of historians here and people who know a lot of trivia. But good afternoon and welcome to the Buffalo History Museum. Again, my gratitude to our partners in the room, particularly my gratitude to County Executive Polenkars. I appreciate your passion for history. I was struck early on in my time here when County Executive Polenkars came to a program that was not, there wasn't a ribbon cutting, you were here for the history, and I know you appreciate history, so I thank you for that. And your unwavering commitment to our community, particularly through investments in arts and culture. Yes. The allure of honoring anniversaries and milestones is one known to each who choose heritage-inspired pursuits. And County Executive Polenkars anticipated the significance of this milestone in the history of our community. It's hard to believe it has been well over 3 years since he reached out to Doug Kohler, the Erie County historian, and Jason Hurley, who is his director of community affairs. And Jason is on a very well-deserved first family vacation, so we are missing him today. He just left, but I want to give a special shout out to Jason because he has worked tirelessly throughout this whole EC 200 bicentennial. That we started imagining the possibilities. And as the county executive said, a lot changed from those early conversations. But those very first meetings started with a few dozen local, historical, cultural, and community stakeholders. We moved our meetings around to various partnering organizations, trying to engage a broad network within the county. This grassroots movement has built up to hundreds of volunteers working on programming, marketing, and outreach. EC 200 endorsed and promoted community-led projects that showcase our history through the generations for all of its complexity and all of its nuance. Participants created programming that helped ensure the year-long commemoration was inclusive and reflective of the diversity and spirit of our community. Since 1862, the Buffalo History Museum documents, preserves, and shares stories of our past. Our region is rich with history, and like our EC 200 partner sites, we pride ourselves on being an institution that is a home to preserve our story for generations to come. Through EC 200, we also shared our community space with local heritage partners to help amplify their mission and work through collaborative programs, social media, lectures, and workshops. As we mentioned, Continuum is our legacy contribution to the Bicentennial, and it was only realized through a generous Erie County capital investment. And again, we've had this open since November. We really hope everyone sticks around to explore it today, but it has really been well received so far. This gallery now that we name in, or that we are in today, is named for the people of Erie County in perpetuity, those that have come before us and those who are yet to come. My commitment to EC 200 is deeply personal. My childhood was filled with trips to the Niagara County Historical Society, which happens to be across from my Nana's house, or it was across from my Nana's house. And then in college, my internship at the Oswego County Historical Society was literally life-changing. Each local heritage site, from the smallest to the largest, holds untold treasure. The network of heritage-based partners that has been activated through EC 200 is also a legacy. I am blown away by organizations like the Hull House and Newstead Historical and Black Rock and Concordia. Entirely volunteer-run, these organizations work tirelessly to ensure safekeeping of these distinctive places that make up our community. So many of our partners are here today to share in the festivities, as we've mentioned, and we will continue to meet and coordinate resources together. From the National Conference of the American Association for State and Local History, that will be here this fall in September, to America 250 and the Erie Canal Bicentennial, this network will continue to work together to bring the history that characterizes our community to the forefront. I would like to acknowledge specifically our chairs for the different committees, Michelle Urbanzik, Director of Explore More, who I don't think is here with us, who was instrumental in the marketing of EC 200, Sarah Carney, who helped us work on business development, of course, Kaz Rodriguez. Kaz chaired our DEAI committee. I wanted to acknowledge Rich Pizek, who is with the Niagara Frontier for the Council for Social Studies. He was instrumental in helping with some of the education planning and programming, and Lindsay Visser, who helped with social media and really creating an online presence. VBN was also an instrumental partner in all of this and really linked into that county network of assets that we mentioned through the county departments, linking in over to a community-wide calendar to share all of the activities that were happening. And without this network, all of this would not have been possible. There are other proclamations here, but we would like to thank, too, the offices of the New York State Senator Sean Ryan, Assemblyman John Rivera, and the office of Governor Kathy Hochul, who also made history during the Bicentennial as our first woman governor. History is being made every moment, and we appreciate all of their support and recognition. I'm going to keep the proclamations out, and we can have them out for everybody to read and look through, but now I really think we would just like to celebrate, have some refreshments. I really appreciate the staff here at the History Museum help pull all of this together, and so let's just enjoy a moment of just appreciating what we've done, exploring the exhibit, and if you can hang out at 6 o'clock, Dr. Steve Peraza will be speaking about the Niagara movement as tonight's Wednesday night program, so that starts at 6. So if you want to stick around for that, you're more than welcome. But thank you all for being here, and thank you all for your deep commitment to this endeavor, and it seems like we're just beginning. The momentum is really rolling forward. So thank you all.